So we have seen enough. Now before we wrap up, let's going to look at the Git and GitHub collaboration simulation. So here what we are going to do is, let me open a sticky note. Here what we are going to do is, we will simulate the real scenario of how three developers who are working on one project is going to use Git and GitHub to work on, to collaborate and integrate their respective modules into the repository, into the remote repository. So here first we create a remote repository in GitHub. Then employee 1 is a front-end developer. He is going to front-end developer actions. He will clone the remote repo. Then he develops his module front end, then pushes that to remote repo. And third, backend developer actions clones the remote repo, then writes his modules, then pushes that into remote repo. Then fourth, data scientist actions writes his modules, before that he has to pull, he has to clone, basically not just pull, he has to clone the remote repo, all the changes whatever that have been added, and then write his module and push his modules. And fifth, once all done, front-end developer and back-end guy and data scientist is going to pull all of the changes from the remote repo into their respective local repos, so that everybody will have unified and uniform repository. If by mistake a remote repository is missed, then everybody, all three, will have a complete piece of code. If backend developer missed his code, and front end will have, front end will miss, and data scientist will have. This is the benefit of having a distributed code version. So we'll have a centralized one central repository kind of one, and second one is distributed version control system. One is centralized version control system. Those were all previous versions, subversion, SVN. So those are their versions. Whereas now Git is not the centralized version control system. This is distributed version control system. So here everybody is going to have a unified, uniform source code. Because of that, if somewhere somebody misses, other people will have for sure. Okay, so that's what our piece of code, so our exercise that we are going to do. Okay, now let's begin our exercise. Business analyst has to execute some prerequisites. So those prerequisites were executed by the business analyst. So he has created an organization called Imlaik org, and after creating that Imlaik org, he has added all the developers and AI scientists and quality assurance personals who are working on this project. He added, and here there are four members in this project. One is AI scientist, second one is front-end developer and back-end developer, and this guy is quality assurance personnel. So, and after that, business analyst, project lead is creating a team with the name data science team. Project lead has created a data science team, and after that he's adding all those members into that particular team. Finally, all respective members were added to the data science team. Finally, he's creating a repository with the name MLApp. and he's assigning data science team to write access to this repository. Teams all four members received email notification as they were added into new team and new repo. In addition to that, project lead also sent the GitHub repo URL and SSH link to the respective members of project team. So Charan, the AI scientist, has started working on the project. So he has begun his work with configuring his Git in his local machine. Then is cross-checking cross-checking his global configuration. So he started after the global configuration validation. He started working on his actual project. So he cloned his project first. Cloning has been successfully done. So he cross-checked what all files he has just cloned into his directory. Then he started writing his Python code. he has written all his ML modules. So his part of writing a code has been done. So now he is planning to push all the changes that he has done it to his local repository into a remote repository. For that, he is adding the changes into staging area. Then he is committing the changes. Then he is ready to push into the so the code from the AI scientist has been pushed into the remote repository. So now the AI scientist is just visiting the remote repository and he's just cross checking whether the code has been pushed into remote repository or not. So all ML modules has been pushed into a remote repository and it was committed by Charan, the AI scientist, and the commit message he has sent was committing all the ML modules. Now let us move to Rahul R, who is the front-end developer for this project. So as usual, Rahul has started with configuring his Git. So Git and he's revalidating his global configuration. So his configuration is done. Now he is ready to start working on the project. As usual, he is also starting by cloning the repository. So he went to repository, then he cloned, he copied the URL of it. Then he has run the git clone. Cloning has been done. So now he has entered into that cloned project directory. Now he started developing his front end modules. His part of front end development has been done. So now he is ready to add them into staging area. So then he will commit those changes. So once commit has been done, now it's time to push it to the remote repository. So the front-end developer's code has been successfully pushed into remote repository. So the front-end developer, he would like to cross-check the data pushing into remote repository. So he verified it. He found that the files were successfully integrated into the source code in remote repository. And backend developer Jancy is waiting for her turn to push the code from her part. So as usual, she also started by configuring her Git. So now she is cross-checking the global configuration of her Git. So cross-check has been successful. Now, as usual, she is ready to clone the repository and add her piece of backend modules into the remote repository. So clone has been successful. So now she can see all the files, all the modules, all the code, source code that was developed by the AI scientist and front-end developer. So while she is cross-checking what all codes were committed by whom, she found that Surya Charan, the AI scientist, committed some modules when in at this time, and ML modules were committed by Surya Charan or Charan, other Charan, and when she is observing who all done the commits, she found that project lead has initiated the first commit, and after that Rahul R has committed his front-end development code, and in between Rahul R and then project lead Charan, the AI scientist, has committed ML modules. So this is the history of the remote repository that she cloned. So now she is ready to write her backend development code. So she has developed all the JavaScript's features and functionality and databases that are required for various purposes. So all were developed, and the JavaScripts and databases were developed by Jansi because she is a backend developer. So now she is ready to add them into staging area, and she is committing them. So her commit is done. So now it's time for her to push from local repository to remote repository. The push has been successful from her local machine, local repository. Now just she wants to confirm whether it has been gone to the right place, to the right remote repository or not. After cross-checking, she found that all her JavaScripts and databases were successfully integrated into the source code or base code of the project. And and she also verified that the commits were made from her Git or not. Jancy Volvo and Jancy Volvo committing back end modules. AI scientist Charan is ready to integrate all the changes that happen to remote repository into local repository. So you see the global configuration, it is Charan. So now he's gonna integrate the remote changes into his local repository. So he has successfully pulled all the changes that had been happened to the remote repository that he was part of. So he just cross-checked whether he has received all the files from the remote repository or not. Yes, it is. He has developed machine learning modules that anyway he has it, whereas all other files from front-end developer and back-end developer JavaScripts and HTML, CSS database files also integrated into his local repository, into AI scientist's local repository. With this, he successfully integrated all the code changes that happened to the remote repository into local repository. So total in this project, 4 people are working. Surya Charanteja, project lead, Charan, AI scientist, Rahul R, front-end developer, Jansi Volvo, back-end developer. So Surya Charanteja initialized and Charan committed ML modules, Rahul R committed front-end modules, Jansi committed back-end modules. Now Rahul is also ready to integrate the code changes that had happened to the remote repository. So before that, he just want to show us its global configuration of Git. Yes, it is Rahul's. So now he is ready to pull all the changes that had happened to the remote repository. So he has integrated his local repository with the remote repository, and it is already up to date. And he has all the files which remote repository consists of. So Rahul, the front-end developer, has also successfully integrated all the changes into his repository. So now project lead wants to check the status of the project. So he just want to let us confirm that his global configuration of Git. Yes, it is Surya Charan Teja, the project lead. So he is just cross-checking whether all the developers has completed their work successfully or not. And the initial commit was made by project lead. The next commit was made by AI scientist Charan. He has committed all the ML modules. And the next commit was made by Rahul R. He has committed all HTML and CSS template source code. And the third commit, the last commit made by Jansi, backend developer. She has committed all backend modules. And he also wants to cross check whether all files has been successfully moved to remote repository or not. He found that all the modules from front end, back end, and ML modules were successfully integrated without errors, and you can also see the number of commits which were made, the commit history also. So Jansi has committed their backend modules, Rahul has committed front end modules, and Charan has committed ML modules. So he is pretty satisfied with the complete project source code. So now he will forward this repository URL to the operation team for further operations.